Everybody should be seeing my screen. I am going to quickly sign out. And of course, I'm going to say welcome to everybody for joining our session today. We're going to have a few of these sessions over the next few days just to ensure that everybody's following along. I know that many of you were able to attend our actual working training days when my team was in St. Vincent a couple of weeks ago, but we want to break things down into sort of the relevant steps as we move forward so that we can really align on what's needed with, respect to getting teachers ready to take attendance. So the main goal, everybody across the board, let's get these teachers to be taking their attendance in the system. So for today's session, I'm just going to focus on a few things, primarily just any questions that might have come up while logging in and just the preliminary checks that we have to do in the system. Tomorrow, we'll look at a couple other things as well. For many of the schools, we may have some promotions or things that we need to do. So we're going to break it down piece by piece as we go, right? So first things first, I know that not everybody may have necessarily received their welcome email as yet. And of course, we have our group chat, so we can follow along in the group chat. I will be providing a list of all the users that we saw. I mean, based on the contacts in the list for the people who we saw. What I'll do is I'll share that list shortly after this meeting. And if your name is not in there, if it's missing for any reason, it would mean that we may have missed you in terms of getting getting you up in the system or anything like that. So it will help us to get a read on plugging some of the gaps so that we can ensure everybody can log in, right? So first things first, there's a couple assumptions here. As Iodel has also said in a couple of conversations we've had with some of the ambassadors, you may or may not have been there, but we have varying stages to where the schools are in terms of readiness, all right? So first things first, have you submitted your data, right? If you haven't submitted your data to the Ministry of Education, I really urge you to get that in as quickly as possible. Once the ministry has the data, they're able to process it, and it's only then that we can help you get your portal set up and everything, right? Now, if you have submitted your data to the ministry, we can touch base, we can sync in our chat. Dixie is also in it. We can try and get some updates to ensure that we know where things are in terms of being moving along the funnel to get everything done, right? The process. If ministry has your data and they've processed it and submitted it to us, as of this morning, I can say all the data that we have received has been imported. And what that really means is that your school had been created already, and within the school, the data that we were provided was set for your school specifically. Now, we've noticed a couple things from the data that we're seeing so far, and there may be a couple changes that will be necessary, but we'll tackle that as we go, and that's partly why we're having the session today. So, level 1, did you submit your data? Level 2, has ministry processed the data and is it with us? And then level 3, of course, have we brought the data in? That all being said, if you're following along on this call, depending on where you fall, you may either not have any login credentials, which is fine. You may have you may not have any login credentials, as I mentioned, which is fine. You may have login credentials, but you may not be seeing everything in the school. That's okay. There are a couple things that we might need to tackle there, but once the data is in, you'll be able to work with it. Or you log in, you see your data there, and there's just a couple tweaks or whatever to make to get you up and running. And we're going to tackle all of that and ensure that everybody is up to speed, right? Once again, main target, let's get these teachers taking attendance. So, assuming you had submitted your data and everything, you would have gotten a welcome email. I have a screenshot here. I'm sharing my screen, and you can see I'm working on a document with a couple steps there. So this document will be shared when it's completed. But you'll be able to see roughly what a welcome email would look like, right? It would have your name, the most important thing, you'll have your credentials there. So you'll have your ID, you'll have your password, and then there will be a URL that you can actually click on, and that will take you to your school URL, right? So if you are Erie Castle Primary, for example, in my example case, then your welcome email would have your smart ID and your password. And when you go to Erie Castle in your case, it would be .moesvg.com, then you'll be able to log in. So should be pretty straightforward. If you didn't get an email looking like this, then let us know, and we can figure out where things are at. Assuming you got the email, you'll be sent to the portal. You just enter the smart ID, enter the password, and you can get right in. Okay. Just a quick note for everybody. I see a couple messages coming into our group chat. This meeting is being recorded, and we will share this information after the fact so that you can follow along as well. So just, in case anybody needs to drop or you're not able to keep up or anything like that, don't worry. This is being recorded. We'll have it shared. All right. So once you get your credentials, you'll be able to enter your smart ID here. You'll be able to enter your password, and you can click log in, and that will take you into your portal. Right? Now, once you come into the portal, there's a couple things that we need to check immediately. First things first, the first thing we're going to check when we log in, which term are we in? So on the top left of your screen, you can see the term here. Now you should be in Christmas term 2023, right? So all things, going well so far, you're able to log in. The first thing you want to do is you want to check your term. Now, we'll go through, a lot of steps to ensure like more advanced term management in the future. But if right now you're not seeing Christmas term 2023 when you log in, just click on your name. And if you click switch term here, you'll be able to switch to Christmas term 2023, right? There may be other terms. In your case, you would see summer term 2023 and maybe a couple other things, but just click on Christmas term 2023, and that's the term you want to be in. More importantly, so at the ministry level, we try to set the term for everybody so you wouldn't have to worry about it, but you'll see a terms module on the left. So you can scroll all the way down on the left, you'll see terms. When you click on that and you click all terms, you'll see a list of the terms there, and you can just check that Christmas term 2023 is your active term. Setting the active term is important, right? And the reason it's important is because as an admin, you have some additional controls here, and you can switch between terms and whatnot. But the typical student or parent, they won't necessarily have access to be able to switch between terms freely. The admin at the school sets the active term, and then everybody who logs in will go into that term. So if you're not seeing the active term set, just let us know, but there is a button here to set the term as active. You can quickly do that, but like I mentioned, it should have been done already. So I don't expect that this will be an issue for anybody, right? Still good to know. The next thing I want to draw your attention to is the import from previous term button. Now, this is particularly important because one of the things we're going to check when we first log in, we're going to check our classrooms and we're going to check our subjects. For the teachers to be able to take attendance, the most important thing is that the classroom and the subject lists are correct. Now, we'll break this down over the course of the next few days. We'll go through each step individually. But if this is your first time logging in, I just want you to check the term. You can check if it's the active term if you need to, but like I said, you can check the term here. And I want you to check your classrooms, and I want you to check your subjects. Okay? So that's really the most important takeaway. Now, let me just take a glance at, okay, so I'm not seeing any questions or anything coming into the chat. That's good. And then, we just need to keep in mind that once we go to the classrooms and the subjects, there may be a couple things to do, right? Now, here's where things may deviate a little bit. If your data was submitted to the ministry and we have not imported it yet, you wouldn't have had a login or anything of the sort. So really and truly, this is most relevant for the people whose data has been processed and you've received your login and you're able to log into the system, right? But if for any reason you log into the Christmas term 2023 and you go to the classrooms tab, and you wanted to, create a new classroom or anything like that, that's something that you could do. But before you do anything of the sort, what we need to do is we need to check if the import came in correctly, right? So you see Christmas term 2023 here, you go to classrooms, you go to subjects. What I expect would happen is that there should be nothing there. And the reason for that is that the data we received, I'm going to log into a different school very quickly. I'm going to go to Christmas term 2023 and we go to classrooms and we see that there's nothing there. We'll go to subjects, we see that there's nothing there. That's expected for the Christmas term 2023. It's the active term that we want to work in, but the data that we imported was not imported into Christmas term 2023. The main reason for this, it's because we were advised that most of the data that we got was probably last term data. Okay, so when you log into the portal, you're in Christmas term 2023, you're not seeing anything, don't panic, right? All we need to do is we click on the button here where your name is, right? And you click switch term. I'm going to do it here in the summer term 2023. That's where all the data was imported into. That's where you're going to see all your classrooms and all your subjects. Now, there's a very distinct reason that we did this. The reason that we did this is because if it is last term data that we received, then you can, you can make an assessment, but chances are your classrooms haven't changed much, your subjects haven't changed much. Teacher assignments are mostly the same. What you can do is you can switch term, you can go to the, my Skype overlay was blocking my ability to do so. You can switch term, you can go to the summer term 2023, and I just want you to check and see that your classrooms and your subjects look about okay. Now, based on the data we've received, for most people, what would have happened is, let me see if I can go to a different live instance just to kind of highlight this out for you. But what would have happened is in most cases, the classrooms and the subjects were created, but they were all assigned to the admin at the school, most likely the principal, right? And the reason for that is that we didn't get necessarily the assignments in the data that was sent. We may not have gotten the classroom assignments and the subject assignments. The timelines were a little tight. And that's where our next sort of first step will be, right? Assuming you switch to the summer term and your data it looks okay, your classrooms, the format of the classrooms, the framework of the classrooms is correct. So, I have my, let me see if I can pull up a live instance just so that I can show this a little bit better. I'll go to institutions here. Let's pick a school. I'm trying to pick a school that has data in it. All right, so it looks like Adelphi Secondary School should be a good example. So let me log in and then I will show you. Okay, perfect. Let's pull this fellow up. It should now be visible on my screen. Here we have Adelphi Secondary School. So we received some data from them, right? If I go to the Classrooms tab, I'm in summer term 2023. You'll see that I have my form here, but all my classes are assigned to the same person. And that's just the admin person that we got, right? In this case, it's Miss, well, I'm assuming Miss Anis Latham or Latham, right? What I want to make sure here is that my classrooms are correct. So I do have a form 1D, I do have a form 1H, I have form 2B, form 2S, form 3MS, etc., right? And if that framework is correct, I don't have to go through and create the classrooms again. All I need to do is go to my terms, go to all terms, click on the button to the right of the term name, so Christmas term 2023, and click import from previous term. I'll click import from previous term. I choose the summer term that I want to import from, and I make sure I classrooms and the students to the subjects. That would make me have to now go in and remove all the students from all of their subjects and classrooms and then do the right. We don't want to get into that. All we want to do is we want to make sure we copy the classroom data, copy subject data. In tomorrow's session, I'll go over how we can do certain promotions. Now, we mentioned the situation here where we were advised that the data we received was last year's data. There's a small caveat here. There are a few schools that did actually submit current year data, meaning Christmas term 2023, right? If you're one of those few schools, then when you do your import, you would want to not only import the classroom's data and the subject's data, but you want to copy the students to the classroom and the students to subjects as well, right? Because it's your current list that were received. But from my understanding, most of the schools, you're not going to be doing that, right? Most of the schools, you're just copying classroom data and you're copying subjects data, right? So we'll cover how to do the promotions and all that tomorrow. But for today, the most important things to keep in mind, you log into the system, you ensure that your current term is Christmas term 2023, right? So I log in here, I switch term, and I have Christmas term 2023. And of course, my classrooms should be empty. My subjects should be empty here, right? And then I switch terms and go over to summer term 2023, and I do my kind of quality check. I just go to classrooms, I look here and I say, okay, these classrooms they look about right. We can work with that. And then you go to subjects and you ensure that the subjects are also looking correct, right? Now you'll see the subjects here, they're sorted by alphabetical order, but you can also sort them by teacher or subject area. There are a couple different things. By teacher wouldn't necessarily work now because just like the classrooms, all the subjects are also just assigned. If we didn't have the data, the subjects are just assigned to a default person, right? So it makes more sense to maybe do it by subject area or something. Okay. You do a quick check, make sure that all the subjects look about right. And once the subject lists are correct and the classroom lists are correct, then you can go over to the terms and you can import in from the previous term, right? So you can import from summer term 2023 and the classrooms and the subjects will copy over. Now, once they've copied over, right, you'll notice, like I said, the teacher assignment may not be correct. So there's just two more steps necessary for what we want to cover today, right? We want to make sure that if any teachers are not assigned, we can assign the teachers, and we want to make sure that if you know, we have the student list, of course, we want to make sure that the student lists are correct as well. Okay, so I'm going to cover that now. So you've gone through the previous steps, you come over, let's say we've copied it over and we're in Christmas term 2023. That's my active term for this term, right? I come to the classrooms tab and I see here that, oh, Miss Latham is not the teacher for Form 1D. All I need to do is select the checkbox, click the action button, click edit classroom, and then I can change the teacher to whomever the correct teacher is. So if the teacher for Form 1D is supposed to be Mr. Kane, for example, I'm assuming that's Mr. Mr. or Miss Kane, then I can go ahead and I can click save, right? And the teacher will update. So I can go through and I can change the teacher for all my classrooms. Likewise, I can go to my subjects here I have my list of subjects, and there's 3 dots beside the subject. I can click on that. I can click change teacher, and I can choose the teacher that I want to switch to. Now, doing one subject at a time may be tedious, especially if you know that you have, one biology teacher that teaches all the different grades. Well, in that case, I would do something like this. I would type biology in the search bar. I say, okay, I have 2 biology classes here. I select both of them. I click the drop down to the top, and I click change teacher. And what this will do is it will allow me to change the teacher for both subjects in one go. So I can go through and I can change my teacher for multiple subjects at once. I click save, and that will change the teacher. I'm not doing it because I don't want to change with this instance or play with this instance so much, but you can see that those changes will go through. I can come over to the side of my training portal and I can give you guys an example. So here we have, let's say, these 2 subjects, and I wanted to change the teacher. I click the drop down. I choose change teacher. I choose a name and click save, and you'll see the teacher updated. So I can do them in bulk. Now remember, I've already selected these subjects. So before I go ahead and start selecting another group of subjects that I want to change, let me just make sure I unselect by just clicking the boxes at the top right for the select all. And I have now deselected, I should say, all the subjects, and then I can go through and do the next set of subjects that I wanted to change for, right? So changing teachers for classrooms, straightforward. You can just press action, click edit button, change the teacher. Changing teacher for subjects, you have a couple different ways to do it. If it's one subject you want to change, you can just click the kebab menu right beside the name. You can click change teacher and that will go. Or if you want to multi-select and do multiple subjects at once, you select them and then you click the drop down on the top right? So we want to get through these steps because we want to ensure that our classrooms are correctly assigned, our subjects are correctly assigned. In the case of, data not necessarily being there, it means you just have to run through these. You can update the classrooms. You have to run through the subjects. You can update the teachers, and you're almost done. The next big step after that, the final step for really what we want to cover today, is once you have changed the classrooms and the subjects to the correct teacher, we want to ensure that the student lists are also correct, the enrollments. Now, we'll have to backtrack just a little bit to our different cases. So case 1, where the data that was imported into the system was last year's data, and I have to do some promotions. Well, we'll cover the promotions tool tomorrow as to how to copy things over. And that will place the students in the classroom, but we still want to be able to check the list, right? Case number 2 is if your data was correct to begin with, but maybe there's some tweaks because at the start of the school year, things will change up a little bit, right? Maybe a student may migrate or no longer be at the school, or maybe you have a situation where you had students enrolled in 1D, but you want to move them over to 1H for whatever reason, from some last minute decisions, whatever it might be. The last step that we want to do is we want to go into the classrooms, right? We'll go into the classroom and you'll see a students tab there. Once you click on that students tab, you will see the class list for the students, right? You will see that everybody is there. You will see that, oh, sorry, I'm looking at the Q&A just really quickly to make sure everybody can hear me. Just let me know if you're hearing me clearly and everything, please. But you see a students list. You see that everybody is there, and you can if you wanted to, you can add students and all that. We'll cover some of those things tomorrow. For today, the first step, all we want to do is we just want to come in and we want to check. We want to make sure the student lists are right? Now, if the student list isn't correct, then obviously there are going to be some changes that are going to happen, right? And once again, if you have imported from the previous term and you don't have your students in the classrooms and whatnot, then there'll be a couple changes that need to be done, right? So you can come into the classroom, you can check the student list here, you can come into the subject, you can go into each subject and you can check the student list as well, right? So you can see the student list in the classrooms, you can see the student list into the subjects, okay? Just to go over the steps once again really quickly, right? We'll log into the system. We should be in Christmas term 2023, so not summer term 2023. Let me switch back over just to be clear. So we'd be in Christmas term 2023. We'd come into the system. We go to classrooms. We don't expect to see anything there right now. We'll go into subjects. We don't expect to see anything there right now. That's okay. We'll do a switch. We'll go over to summer term 2023. We see our classrooms and our subjects. We make sure that the general framework is right. So the classrooms are named correctly and everything. I want to say, yeah, man, that good. If, you know, something, let's say like all of these are here, but there's one classroom missing, right? What would I do in that situation? Well, I still want to copy all of this over, right? So I'd copy it over. And then on the classroom side in the Christmas term, I would create a new classroom. Same thing for the subject side. We'd create a new subject. But we'll cover that a little bit more tomorrow because it will make more sense, especially once we have the proper breakdown of how to do promotions and things of the sort as well, because that's very important as well, right? So I want to make sure the class lists are populated correctly. So that's really just it. We'll come in, we check the classroom framework is correct, we check the subject framework is correct, and then we can go over to our terms, go to all terms, and then we can import. All right. Just quickly rehashing the import. I'm importing from the summer term, so I choose that as the term that I'm importing from. I scroll down and I do copy classroom data and I do copy subjects data, right? That creates my classrooms, it creates my subjects, but they will be empty once they get created. All right. Once they're created, I go back over to my class. Well, I can switch my term. So just to make sure I'm now in the Christmas term. When I'm working in any term, I have to make sure that that's the term I'm seeing here, because whatever changes you make is going to happen in the term that you see here. I come to the classrooms, I would see the classroom here, and then I can just start changing out the teachers. All right. So now I will do a quick check of the chat to see if there are any questions that might have come in. Let me see and make sure. Let's see. I'm checking our chat. Okay, it looks like some people are not getting in. So we'll tackle any kind of login issues, anything like that. We can tackle it after the fact, right? We can use our chat to tackle that. Let me check the question here. Am I an admin in my school system? I mean, we wouldn't know that, and you're an anonymous attendee, so I really couldn't tell you if you're an admin in your school system. But, please just use our chat. And if you're not seeing, for example, you log in and you're not seeing the modules on the left, or you're not seeing the term, you can drop a question in the chat and we're trying to tackle those as they come in, and we can, give our response. About change assigned classrooms for students, or will that be covered in another session? Right. So just a quick thing, we make a distinction between classrooms and subjects. The classroom is their home class. So once you wanted to do promotions, assuming we copy over the classroom and the subjects to create the classrooms and the subjects, so you don't have to go through and create each classroom and each subject again, right? Then we would use a promotions tool to be able to bring them forward. Now, just, leaning a little bit into the future, next term, you wouldn't even need to place the students into the classrooms and subjects again, because next term, when you're importing students into the classrooms and students into the subjects. Chances are between this term and next term, you won't have any, or if you do, you'll only have a few changes to make. So in that case, you simply just do the import for everything. But because this is a new school year, we'll copy the classrooms, we'll copy the subjects, and then you can make the changes if you need to change the teacher. you can make those changes now. And then after tomorrow's session, you'll understand how to import the students in as well. And really and truly, just to be clear, once you have your classrooms updated, your subjects updated, and the students in the classrooms and subjects as they should be, the teachers can start taking attendance after that, right? Because each teacher, when they log in, they go to the attendance module, they will see everything. But we'll cover attendance in another session as well. And then as the admin or as the principal account, the principal will be able to see that attendance is being taken across the board. Okay, I have another question. You attended yesterday, the login information was not sent to you. Okay, Miss Bob Daly, I think if you're only seeing the teacher modules, it's possible that you may not have the relevant roles needed. So don't worry about it. I mean, we're gonna ensure that you get the roles. Just shoot us a message in the group chat. I mean, I'm gonna try and follow up on this and right after we get off the call, but just to be safe, you can shoot a message in the chat. And what we'll do is we'll check to make sure that you have all the relevant roles. And of course, this session is being recorded, so you'll be able to follow along once you have everything. Okay. The session, oh, okay, I see that. I see the recording. I see that somebody mentioned something for the recording. We scheduled the session for this time around 3 p.m. But if you wanted to move it earlier or a little later, we have to try and pick a time that's generally the best for everybody. So, some feedback that we've gotten is that school may end around 2 p.m. and then like 2 to 3 p.m. There's some housekeeping that needs to be done, and then you get some time at 3, so we went with 3 p.m. But if there's another time, let me see if I could maybe do a quick poll here. I'm not seeing the poll option. Yeah, I'm not sure. Okay, we might not have the polls enabled, but what we can do is, look, we can adjust forward or back. It really and truly that's why we're recording the sessions too. We want to make sure everybody can actually keep up with it and follow it. So let's maybe figure out a time in the chat if we need to adjust, but as it stands, we're kind of moving forward with 3 p.m. until we get enough feedback that we should change it, if that helps. New Form 1s by the Ministry of School. Great question, Miss Virgin. So the form classroom, like I said, once you copy forward, the classroom and the subject would be there, right? The students, adding them to the system, you can create new users in the system. Now, if you're missing a teacher, for example, let's say you come to your classroom and you need to change the teacher. And then, so you go here and you click, well, let me move this chat out of the way a little bit, it's blocking me. But I click here and then I click the action button and then I click edit classroom to change my teacher, right? I select the drop down and I don't see my teacher's name there. What do I do at that point? Well, if my teacher is missing, you have to let the ministry know, right? You can use our chat maybe, but I also don't want to I want to make sure the chat doesn't get too cluttered with a question like that. Like we can opt for the chat, but definitely let's talk to Miss Richards and let's let that be known so that we can ensure that the teacher was not maybe created and put in a different school, right? They have unique IDs and whatnot because we'll want to ensure that if a teacher has transferred from a different school or transfers from your school to a different school, we don't end up with duplicate accounts. So if you click the drop down and the teacher's not there, let the ministry know. However, for the students, we can just go ahead and create the student. So we'll cover new user creation tomorrow. I'll talk about that. But you should have access to a users module and you can create the student, right? And we want to try and capture as much information as possible. So I hope that answers your question. Right, so I see a question now. I would like to know if there would be tutorials for each section of the system. By the way, I'm not sure if everybody can see the questions or not, so I'll start reading them out. So I would like to know if there would be tutorials for each section of the system. So that's what we're doing. We're kind of doing a little less of like a standalone sectional tutorial, those will also, I mean, there are many in the system already. If you just navigate to the support and help option, it will open a tab that takes you to our knowledge base, and there's some videos and tutorials there, and we're updating it because for St. Vincent, what you guys are getting is actually, you know, our newest, most cutting edge aesthetic. Functionally, it's still the same, so you can follow along with the tutorial, but if you want it to look exactly the same, the videos will be updated periodically as we move forward. That being said, what we're doing now is we're streamlining the process a little bit. So rather than giving you a tutorial about what a specific module in the system or section, as you called it, can do, we're kind of streamlining it to cover your needs, right? So you log in, you check the term, because that's the most important thing. And then you check your classroom and subject list, because that's the most important thing to get you to the point where your teachers can just take attendance in the system. Right. Specific questions about the schools, I would say, so I have a question about who's admin for the fancy government school. Whoever we got the data for, I wouldn't just know it off the top of my head. So what you could do is drop a message in our group chat, the same one that we're using, and we could check on those things for you and let you know. If there are two classes, should they be separated? I'm not understanding the question there, but you know, if you have a grade 1 and a grade 2, for example, then yes, you'd create a classroom for grade 1, you'd create a classroom for grade 2. Mind you, if you have submitted the data to the ministry, then you wouldn't have to actually create any classrooms. That would be there, right? And you just have to import it from that last term data. However, let's say the data you submitted, you only had a grade 1A, but since then over the summer you decided, you know, we need to add a grade 1B. Then you could come in and you can click the action button, you can click create classroom, and you can add that classroom, and you just have to fill out some information, the name of the classroom. So, you know, I call it grade 1B, the grade level, the teacher who needs to be in the system, as we mentioned, and that's really just it. And you click save and you're good to go, right? And that creates a classroom. Now the subjects would have to be created for that classroom. So you then come into the subjects module, you'd click add new, and you get some basic information there. So you put the name of the subject. So let's say I'm creating math for this new grade 1B that I just created, right? I choose the subject area, choose a grade level, we know it's grade 1, right? And there's an option here for selecting a classroom. So just to kind of quickly explain what that means, if you are at the primary school level and you do your classes so that you have a home classroom and all the students do their classes together, you would choose the classroom from the optional class. And the only reason you would do that is when you actually, excuse me, when you add the students into the classroom, they would automatically all just be added to the subject. Now, at the high school level, you may not be able to do that because at the high school level, we have pools, option pools. So we don't have a situation where every single student in Form 10A is in the math class, right? It may be a couple students from Form 10A, a couple students from Form 10B, etc., etc. So in that case, I would really not, you know, be able to link the classroom. So that's really what that optional button is for. Right? But we fill out the information, we click save, and that will create the subject. So any missing subject, you can add that in. Any missing classroom, you can add that in. But once again, I urge you first to just switch the term and look at the summer term data, because that is data that you submitted. And we wouldn't want you to have to go create a new classroom or create a new subject if it was already actually created for you. I'm seeing Miss Olivier or Mr. Olivier Clayshorn that the school uses Form 1, Form 2 format. Or here it says 1S, 1J. You can rename the classrooms as you need, right? Go to they were created based on the data that we received. But if you don't like how a classroom is named, you can go into the classroom and rename it, or you can just click on the option button here, click action, click edit classroom. Maybe I don't want to call it grade 1A. Maybe I want to call it grade 1 Andrew, right? I go down, I click save, it updates, right? So you can update it however you want. Right. So like I said, you shouldn't have to create the new classrooms. If the classrooms are there, just to edit the names, right? Okay, have not received login information yet. However, will admin be creating or giving teachers their login info, or will it be sent directly to them? So if we receive the data and the teachers were imported, we can send welcome emails. But if not, we will also show the admins how to send welcome emails tomorrow. So you'll be able to do that. All right. Will there be a handbook? Like I said, I have a working document that I'm kind of fleshing out some pieces, and we'll share that so you can follow along. Of course, you'll also have the videos, and then there's also the tutorials. So there are a couple different ways, and at the end of the day, we also have our chat. So if you're stuck with anything, just put a question in there, and we'll work with that. Data was sent to the ministry, but have not gotten the welcome email. So we'll follow up with specific schools for the data. We'll do that offline, right? We can check in with we periodically have, for example, I has done it twice already where he had office hours. You can join and you can ask the question there, or you can drop a message in the chat. I see a question about teachers being transferred. Yes, we need a list of all the transfers so that we can guide the ministry, the ministry can manage that from their portal. And then we can figure things out from there. Some grades are split into 2 classes. Should we keep it as one here or add another class? Yeah, that's fine. It's not one grade, one classroom per grade. It's however your school functions. So the question was, some grades are split into 2 classes. The system is meant to reflect how your school operates, right? So if in your school you have a grade 10 and you have 4 classrooms for grade 10, you can create all 4 classrooms for grade 10, right? In the case of Adelphi that I'm showing here, they have 2 Form 1s, right? They have a Form 1D and a Form 1H. So in that case, they created a Form 1D and a Form 1H, or well, we did based on the data we got. So, it's really just one of those things where the system should reflect how your school operates. And over time, you'll see it will bring a lot of, little nuances that will make life easier going into a new term. You'll be able to copy a lot of data over. The management will be a lot easier. It's just a matter of, as we figure out some of these teething pains and get these initial instances up and stuff, there's a little bit of change to be made. But definitely let it reflect your school as your school operates. Can the admin remove teachers who are transferred from the school, or do we contact the Ministry of Education? Yeah, just contact the ministry. Once they transfer them out, they shouldn't be in your school anymore. So why take on the extra work, right? Now, we'll look at the users module a little bit tomorrow, but you do, have the ability to prevent somebody from logging into your system and things like that. There are perks for that. Right now, we're very, very focused. We're kind of laser focused to get you guys up to just getting to the point where attendance can be taken, but we can also do a deep dive later on as well for a lot of the advanced functionality. The system has a lot that it can do. So we're kind of streamlining this to make sure that we meet the most important milestones. Like I said, the most important milestone right now, let's get these teachers taking attendance. For the teacher accounts, like I mentioned, it's really just because we want to. So the question was about creating the teacher accounts yourselves. And really and truly, I can't speak to this in detail because it's something that a call that has to be made alongside with the Ministry of Education, right? They want to ensure that the accounts are there. Now, in terms of, yes, start adding grades and midterms are around the corner, I definitely understand, and we're gonna move on this aggressively to make sure that everything is up and running as smoothly as possible. Seeing somebody saying they're not hearing. Hopefully you're able to hear me in this time. Okay, but there is only one current Form 1 as well as other classes. All the students are in that class. We have multiple Form 1s. Sure. So if you have to create another Form 1, then you'd have to do that. You could still copy over from the previous term. And in that case, you can at least have the, some of the work done for you. in terms of the importing of the students, I would say, yeah, just don't choose to copy students into classroom. And then if you copy over, okay, so let me just clarify again the import stuff, because I'm seeing, I think Miss Olivier has some questions about the term. So how we import from the terms there's degrees to it, right? So first things first, when I'm importing from a term, I have the ability to just copy the classroom data and subject data. Really, that just means create an empty classroom, create an empty subject, right? So that you don't have to go through the steps of creating all the classrooms again and subjects again. Now, once we get this initial push done, the alignment of things will be such that in future school years, most likely 80 to 90% of the classrooms and the subjects don't change much, right? You're not going to have new teachers or move around teachers too much. And so there are obviously always changes, but there's a lot that's also unchanged. In that case, once you copy the classroom data and subject data over, like a lot of that work will be done. And then you just fine tune, right? You add in the additional classroom that you need to make. You add in the additional subject that you need to make. In terms of the multiple forms not being there, all I can say is we copied, we created the instances based on the data that were provided. So I'm not sure what happened there. We can obviously follow up at some point and check that. But right now, that doesn't move you forward in getting ready for your teachers to take attendance, right? So we can figure out why that didn't happen. And in the meantime, yeah, you can make the additional classes as well. How will the students get their credentials to log in? Great question. It will be for the students. What we're going to do is, ideally, there would have been an email for every account, right? An email address to put in. So if the students have an email address, we'll want to show you how to edit and create users tomorrow, how to add an email address against an account. Once the teachers are up and running in the system and they're taking their attendance and they're creating their assignments, that buys us a little bit of time for the admins at the school to kind of get in the data as much as possible for students and parents. And there may be a couple different ways to tackle this, right? It's not necessary that one person has to do the data entry per se. We have a lot of different things to do in terms of like getting the data in. We may, for example, open up the system so that parents and students can come in and update their profiles, right? Things like that. But all of that still requires that initial login to happen. Now, in the system, once a user is created, there's a way to generate the login and the password. We prefer the email address route because then they, just like you guys did, you privately get an email to your inbox that has the username, that has the password, and your inbox is as secure as you make your inbox. As opposed to other methods where maybe the email addresses and the student IDs and the passwords have to be shared out. And then, of course, somebody may have to manage that and stuff. So we'll tackle the students once we get settled with the teachers and you get used to the system. It'll be easier then. In your case, there's a lot of missing classes and subjects. So what I would say the best way is no, you don't have to create them in the summer term. What you can do is, because as it stands, the summer term will just be untouched for now. You can import the data from the summer term over into Christmas term 2023, and then just add the additional classes in Christmas term 2023. Right? And then that way you don't have to, like, I don't see you could create it first in summer and then copy it over, but why not just copy it over and then you have that summer term 2023 that's untouched, so as to speak, and then you can, in your Christmas term 2023, go in and you can create the new classrooms, you can create the new subjects and all that. And just to quickly rehash, when you're in classrooms, you click the action button, create classroom, fill out the info here, that creates a classroom. When you're in subjects, you click the action button, you click the add new button, and you can create your subject, right? Who's responsible for resetting forgotten passwords? So there's a couple different ways to reset passwords. If you know your login ID, well, if you have your welcome email, you can always go to your welcome email. And I think there's a change password flow in there. Let me just confirm that. Yeah, so there's a reset URL button there, so they can go to that welcome email and they can reset their password from there. Alternatively, there's a way that admins can do it, but we'll touch base on that when we talk about the users.